वो लिखा है दाल में दम कर रही है।
Yes. Good evening, everybody. Yeah, like we have still people joining. Okay, so yeah. Okay, yeah. So welcome to today's Python class. It's 6:04 already. So let us start a bit. Okay. So yeah. So in our previous class, we have went through files, right? So we have seen how to open files, how to read from different files, how to write into files, like different modes in our files. Like we have write mode, read mode. We also have append mode. Okay, so that's what we have seen, and I hope you all have practiced and went through like how to try that. Okay, so and I have also sent you the respective notes of that day. Okay, so now let us go into a new topic for today. Yeah. Let me start sharing my screen. And yes. Okay, so yeah, so in today's class we will be going to see exceptions. Okay, so exceptions, yes, so exceptions is the topic which is unique. Okay, so which is unique to certain high level programming languages, right? It is only existing in programming languages like Java. Okay, so it is in Python, it is in C# only. Okay, so like whenever you have big programs, like whenever you are having applications being developed using programming languages, you will be needing exception. Like, why? If you are learning from a small programming language, like if you are starting from C++, they don't have this concept called exception handling. Okay, so but since Python is an evolved language and it is the latest, one of the latest language, so it is having exception handling. Okay, so let us see what is exception handling in Python. Okay, so like you can see, let us start with the introduction. What is this saying? It's saying that there are two types of errors during programming. Like when you are doing programming, you normally encounter two types of error. The first type of error is called as syntax errors, right? So what is a syntax error? Like if a syntax error happens when you miss a parenthesis. Okay, so sometimes you might miss a parenthesis, you might miss a colon. Okay, sometimes you also might miss indentation, right? So and I hope everyone knows what is indentation in programming, right? So if you do not know, let me just show you some example like what is indentation. Like you can see. Okay, so let me open a new program and see. Okay, so what we will do is we have multiplication. Okay, so like we have this program which we discussed earlier, which was about multiplication of matrices. Like you can see, there is been gap, right? So after every loop, you are having certain gap. Like this is first for loop, right? Once you are once you have started writing in this for loop, what are you going to have? You are going to have this gap. Okay, so this gap is called as indentation. Okay, so again, if you are having one more loop, you have to again give certain gap, right? So this gap is again called as indentation, and we also have certain indentation. Like if you forget to give indentation, then this statement does not come under this for loop. Okay, so it might go on inside any other for loop, right? So like you can see, where is this print? See, this statement is inside the main program. Why? Because it is not having any indentation. Okay, it is along the levels of the main lines. That's why it is inside the main program. Whereas this for loop is inside the first for loop. Why? Because it is having this indentation. Okay, so I hope the concept of indentation is clear. And even if you have known the indentation earlier, you might not have been knowing that this is called as indentation. Okay, so having good terminology while learning programming is also important. So just please be clear that indentation is also important while you are writing your code. Okay, so now like whenever you miss, like if you miss a syntax, okay, if you miss a colon, okay, if you miss indentation or parenthesis, then once you run the program, you will be seeing an error. Okay, so that type of error is called as syntax error. Okay, so simple. How are you going to correct syntax error? You can just correct the syntax error by writing the correct syntax. Suppose you are missing a colon or you are missing a parenthesis. Okay, so these are called as parentheses. Okay, so you used to have this circular brackets, right? So these are called as parentheses. Okay, so if you are missing a parenthesis or if you are not having any indentation, you can just correct that, right? So there is not much about correcting syntax errors. Okay, so now what we are going to discuss in today's class is the second type of errors we have, which is exceptions. Okay, so exceptions. Let us see what is exception, how it is different from syntax error, right? So like, let us follow these lines. What it is saying, even if the code is syntactically correct, it may sometimes give errors. Like sometimes if the whole of your program is correct syntactically, that means that each and every syntax you have given is correct, but there, like you have given an error like divide a number by 0. Okay, so what is divide a number by 0? Like you can have the value of 0 by 1. Okay, so whenever you divide the value of 0 by 1, you will get the answer as 0. It is simple. Okay, so but when you divide 1 by 0 in mathematics, there is no value. Okay, so we cannot divide 1 with 0. Okay, so this is called as not defined, or we sometimes also call it as infinite, right? So I hope you have seen this in trigonometry or mathematics in your intermediate or in 10th class also. Okay, so this is called as infinite. Okay, our computer cannot process a value like this, right? So since it cannot process a value, it will be telling you that it is a divide by zero error. Okay, so but it will not tell you this error while you are running. Like it will not tell you that this is missing colon, there is missing parenthesis, there is indentation error. It will tell you after you run the program, right? Once you run the program and when you divide it by zero, it will tell you. Okay, so that type of errors, we call that those as exceptions. Okay, so let us continue. These exceptions are normally encountered during runtime, right? That this is the main difference between exceptions and syntax errors. Okay, so what is happening? If you cannot identify these exceptions before running, right? Before running, you only identify syntax error, but you can identify exceptions only after you run the program. Okay, and hence they are called as exceptions. An exception is an event which occurs during the execution of a program that disrupts the normal flow of the program's instructions. And one more problem we have regarding exception is if our program encounters an exception, it will just leave the program. Okay, so it will not complete the rest of the program and it will just leave it then and there only. Okay, so it will just leave it there and exit the program. Okay, so that's why if you are having an exception, okay, so what problem is it going to cause? It will disrupt. Okay, it will disrupt the flow of the program. Okay, so in general, when a Python script encounters a situation that it cannot cope with, it raises an exception. Okay, so if there is certain situation which the Python program does not understand, like it do not know what to do, then what is this program is going to do? It will say there is an exception. Okay, so that is what we have intro about exception. Okay, so then going forward, when a Python script raises an exception, it must either handle the exception immediately, otherwise it terminates and quits. Okay, so because these exceptions quit our program, we don't want our program to quit in middle, right? So what we have to do is we have to handle our exceptions, right? So just to give you a demo like how exception occurs, let us try and run an exception for divide by zero, right? So I have pre-written this program. So what I will do is I will copy this program in my main file. Like you can see, I have the value of numerator is 10, right? And what is the value of denominator? Let us take 2. Okay, so then what am I doing? I am printing numerator with denominator. Okay, so now let us run this program. Okay, so once I run this program, the program is smooth. I am getting an answer which is saying that the answer is 5.0. No problem. Okay, say I have changed the value of denominator from 2 to 0 now. Okay, so the new value of denominator is 0. Now let me run this program, right? So now when I run this program, like you can see, there is an error. Okay, so what is this error saying? It is saying that 0 division error. Okay, so what does it mean? It means that you cannot divide by 0. Okay, so since there is an error, okay, so the user will get confused. What is this happening? Okay, so what you have to do is you have to handle this error, right? So let us go and handle this error, okay, and learn how to handle these types of errors. Okay, so let us go further and go into our new topic, which is handling an exception. Okay, so if you yes, so if you have some suspicious code, okay, that may raise an exception. What is any code which you think it will raise an exception? Like if you have that type of code, you can defend your program by placing the suspicious code in a try block. Okay, so this is the new topic we are going to learn. So whenever you think there is going to be an exception, what are you going to do? You will be placing that code in a try block. Okay, so I will teach you how to make a try block. Just keep that code in a try block. Okay, so after the try block, we will also have an except block. Okay, so what we will do, we will also keep the except block. If there is an exception in this try block, it will come to this except block. Simple. There is no rocket science. It is simple as this. Okay, so let me just show you. I have a pre-written program here, like you can see, or we will go to this compiler. Okay, so like you can see, again I am having a program. Okay, so I am having the same program where I am dividing numerator with denominator, right? But here I have certain changes, right? What changes I am doing? I have kept the whole code inside a block called as try block, right? So this, what is this block called as? This block is called as try block. If you think there is going to be an exception, there is going to be an error, what you have to do, you have to keep that block, keep that code, or keep those lines inside a try block, right? So once you keep that lines inside a try block, you should also keep an except block. Okay, so this except block comes with the try block, right? So in except block, you have to write what you want to be printed if there is an exception, right? If there is an exception, this try will catch that exception and will give to except block. This will accept block, whatever you write inside this except block is being printed. Okay, so right now I don't need this line, so I will let me just comment this. Okay, then now let us run this. Okay, so if I run, so let me enter the numerator as 10 and enter the denominator as 5. Okay, so now I am getting the output, right? There is no problem. That means that it is running, there is no exception, there is no error message shown. Okay, so now if you want to have an exception, what you have to give is give the numerator as 10 and give the denominator as 0. Okay, so when I have given, now I am not getting the earlier message that divide by 0 error, there is an error, nothing. Okay, so what is the message am I getting? I am getting the message that denominator cannot be 0. Please enter a non-zero value. Where is this message coming from? This message is coming from this print statement. Okay, where is this print statement? This print statement is in this except block. Okay, so I hope you have understood here. So what is happening? Whenever there is an exception in this try block will find that exception and it will take the control to except block. Okay, so now you can write the respective statement what you want to be printed in the except block. Okay, so you can write a meaningful message for the user to understand that you are entering the denominator as 0, and in mathematics you cannot have denominator as 0. Okay, so please enter a non-zero value, then only the division can be performed. Okay, so that's why I have written this is our custom code. Okay, this is the text written by us, right? So that's how this try and exception block helps us to catch the errors and give a meaningful message to the users, right? So yes, so this is how you have to understand the exceptions in a block and also give a respective or meaningful output to the user, right? Yes, so I hope everything is clear with this. Anyone has any doubt? If anyone has doubt, please you can ask. Like I will be proceeding to the next concept, right? Okay. Yeah, so seems like no doubt. So let me go and go to the next topic. Okay, so in the next topic, like in Python, you don't have only one exception. Like divide by 0 is not the only exception in Python, but you have many different exceptions, like many different types of errors in Python, right? So let us understand how to handle different types of exceptions in Python. Okay, so like you can see, we also have one more exception called as index exception, right? So let me go and explain you what is index exception. That index exception is in here, I think, right? Where is index exception? One second. Okay. Okay. So yeah. So let me write that code. Okay. So what I will do is I will change this code and I will demonstrate you what is index exception. Okay. So what I will do is I will create a list. Okay. So how to create a list? Give the name of the list. I will give the name of my list as my list, and I will store element. Okay. You can store element as 10. Okay. 10, 11, 2. Okay, so these are the elements I have. Okay, so now what I will do is I will ask the user to enter any index. Okay, so input enter the index. Okay, so what is index? Like if the user wants the first element, he will enter the index as 0, so he will get 10. If the user wants the second element, he will enter the index as 1, he will get 11. Okay, so what we will do is, okay, so what we will do is we will print a of I, right? Simple. Okay, so this is simple program. Let me just run this and see what is going to happen. Okay, run. Okay, So what it is saying, it is asking me to enter the index, or so then I will enter 1. Okay, so when I enter 1, what is, sorry, so there is I have entered A, so instead of A I should have written my list, right? So I have corrected the name of the list. Now I am writing. So it is asking me to enter the index. I will enter 1. Okay. So when you enter 1, what is the value in the my list of 1? The value in the my list of 1 is 11, right? So let me run this. Like you can see, the output 11 is printed. Okay. So, but what is going to happen? Okay. What is going to happen if I give I as 5? Okay. So is there any element as my list of 5? You have my list of 0, you have my list of 1, you have my list of 2 only. You don't have my list of 3, 4, 5, 6, anything. Okay. So, but let us see, let us try and see what is going to happen if I give the input as my list of 5 or my list of 6. Okay. So let me run this and 1 second. What is happening? Print, and there is some error with this line. So let me remove this. 1 second. Oh, okay. Oh, there is no. Okay. Let me run this. You cannot have single indentation. So I have corrected this thing. So let me run this. So now it is asking for index. So I am entering index number 6. Okay. So now what is it saying? That list index is out of range. Okay. So what is the range of my list? The range of my list is only 2. Okay. The highest range for my list is 2. I cannot have any value beyond 2, right? So that's why what am I getting is I'm getting an error called as index error. So now you don't want this type of error, right? So you want a nice message in the output saying that there is invalid index. Okay, you can index, the value of index cannot be greater than length of the list. You want certain nice custom message. Okay, so that means that you have to catch this exception. Okay, so what is the name of this exception? The name of this exception is index error. Okay, so what you will do is you have to first place the whole code inside the try block, right? So what am I doing is I am placing the whole code inside the try block, right? This is the work I have kept it. Then I have except block, right? So I will write except, and then inside this except, what am I going to write? I will print. Okay, so what am I going to print? The index is greater than the length of the list. Okay, so this is the message now it will be displayed when I have an exception. Okay, so now let me just run that. Now I will enter the index as 6. Like you can see, the message I have given is the index is greater than the length of the list. Okay, so this is the index. Okay, so now let us do one more thing. Okay, so now what we will do is we will also have code for this. Okay, so we will also have code for this. Okay, so now there is code inside my try block where I can get not only one exception, but I can get 2 exceptions, right? Inside this block can give me the index exception, and this block can give me divide by 0 exception. Okay, so if you have any of the error, the same statement will be printed, right? So you don't want the same statement, right? So you want different exceptions should have different statements, right? So then what you have to do is you have to mention what type of exception you want. Like let me show you. Like you have index error and 0 division error. So whenever you have index error, you have to mention that the name of the error in front of the except block. Okay, so whenever you have this index error in front of except error, this statement will run only where there is an index error. Okay, so again we can have one more except statement for except statement for what? For 0 division error. Okay, so you have to write the name of the error as it is. So 0 division error. Okay, so now I have written 0 division error, and under this I will print. Okay, so let me copy this. I don't want to type it again and again. So what am I doing is I'm just copying this. Okay, so now you can have index, you can have exception blocks with specific types of exception, right? So now let us run and see. Let us try each. So what it is asking, it is asking me to enter an index. So first what I will do is I will enter an index 1. Okay, so it is giving me the number as my list of 1 is 11, then it is okay. So now let me enter the numerator as 3 and denominator as 0. So what is giving? It is giving that denominator cannot be 0. Please enter a non-zero value. Okay, so that means that it is working good. So now let me just run this, and now let me give some vague index called as 9. Like you can see, it is saying that the index is greater than the length of the list, right? So that this is how you can also have a simple except block, and you can also have an except block which is only for specific type of exception, like the index error type of exceptions or zero division type of exception, right? So I hope everyone is clear with this. Okay, so if anyone have any doubt, you can please ask before I proceed to the next topic. Okay, so now let us go to the next topic. Okay. Yes, so yeah, so then let us go to one more topic inside this, which is called as finally. Okay, so what is this finally? Finally is comes with the try except block. Okay, so you can have a try block, you can have an except block, you can also have a finally block. Okay, so what is this finally block? In finally block, the try statement in Python can have finally clause. This clause is executed no matter what. That means that you might have an exception, you might not have an exception. The statements inside the finally block will be definitely going to get executed. Tasks like closing file, disconnecting from network are performed in finally block. Like there are certain tasks which you have to do eventually. Certainly you have to do that task. Like say there is an exception or say there is not an exception, you are going to do that task. That type of statements or tasks are placed inside this finally block. Let us try this finally block inside this. Okay, so what we will do is we will take a simple program. Okay, so here we have a try, we have an exception, and we also have this finally, right? So I have written finally. Okay, print in finally I will print. Okay, this is printed always. You can print some text. So what I'm writing is I'm writing this is printed always. Okay, so just to check whether it is being printed or not. Okay, so let us copy this and paste it in here. So okay, so let me run this. Like if I have a numerator as 6 and denominator as 3, you will get the answer, but whatever you write inside the finally block is being printed. Okay, so it means that if there is no exception, the statement inside the finally blocks are executed. Now let me have an exception. So I will have the numerator as 6, denominator as 0. It is having exception called as denominator cannot be 0, and then I also have the text called as this is printed always. Okay, so what does this mean? Whatever you write in this finally block is being printed always. Okay, so just for you to demonstrate one more thing, I have one more program. Okay, let us go to that program. Okay, so this program is regarding files, right? So like in our previous class, I have demonstrated you about files. Like you cannot write files program in files program. What files program on online compilers, like they do not have any operating system, that you cannot create files there. So that's why you have to write those files programs in this Visual Studio Code. Okay, so I am writing this. So I have a try block, I have an except block, right? So like let us see, you have this read.txt. Okay, so just let me open this. There is certain text inside this read.txt. What is this text? Hello all, good evening everybody, etc. So let me go that. So what am I doing is I am opening read.txt. Okay, let me just change that. So I am opening read.txt in the read mode, and just I am printing the context. Okay, simple. Just don't go into this type of error. Right now I will explain you. Okay, so now let me run this program and see what is going to happen. Okay, so run. So see, all of the text inside this is being printed, right? So all the text is being printed. Good. Okay, so now let us see, let us say a user is entering a file which is not there. Okay, so let us say there is user is entering the name of the file instead of read, he has entered the name of the file as read1. Okay, so can you see any file called as read1 in my directory? No, there is no file called read1 in my directory. So there is an exception going to happen here. So whenever you have a file name which is not existing, you are going to encounter an exception, right? So this type of exception is called as input output exception. Okay, because this is related to operating system. This is related to Windows. Windows is unable to find this file. It will give input output exception. So that's why we call this exception as input output error. So because I want to catch this exception, I also have a try block. So all this code is inside a try block and then an exception block. So what is this exception block? It is catching an error which is saying that IO error. What is IO error stands for? IO error stands for input output error. Okay. So what am I printing? I am printing that I cannot find the file because there is no file. That respective message is being printed. Okay. So then I have this finally block also. Okay. So what am I doing? I am closing the file. Okay. So closing the file after your program is done is a good practice. Okay. You have to always close the file. Opening a file without closing again and again might have certain different types of errors. So whether you have an error, whether you don't have an error, you must close the file. That's why what I'm doing is I am keeping the close statement inside this finally block. Okay. So now let us run this and see what type of error is going to happen. Okay. So run. See, there is an exception here, but you can also see an exception message saying that it cannot find the file. Okay. So because why is this red color dialog box appearing? Because there is no file object being created. Why no file object is being created? Because there is no file called read1.txt, no file object is being created, so it cannot close the file. Okay. So since it cannot close the file, it is giving an exception. Okay. But instead of read1, if I mention read.txt, it will open the file, it will print the contents, and it will also close the file. Okay. So this is how you have to understand. Okay. Let me just stop this. I've stopped the program and just run this. So this program is for you to demonstrate or understand how to what is input output error. Okay. So what happens if there is no file and how to catch that type of error, and why do we normally use finally statement in try and except block. Okay. So I hope this is clear to everybody. Okay. So if anyone has any doubt regarding try and except or files or errors or finally statement, you can please ask before we proceed to the next. Okay. Okay, so seems like we don't have any doubt. So now let us go to next concept. Okay, so we are done with try, we are done with except, we are done with finally. So then we have try with else. Okay, so this is unique to Python only. Okay, so we can have try with else also. Okay, so like let us see why do we need try with else. Like in some situations, we might want to run a certain block of code if the block inside try ran without any errors. Okay, so for these cases, we can use else. Like say, let me explain you. Like say this try block. Okay, in this try block, if you get any exception, this will get executed, right? All the things in the exception will get executed. Sometimes if you don't have any exceptions in try block, you want to print something like everything has been successful, there are no exception, or certain types of message. If you want to print that type of message, okay, so you can write that inside a new block called as else block. Okay, so when will the messages in the else block will get executed? When there are no exceptions in the try block. If there are exceptions in the try block, the code in the else block will not executed, will not get run, or will not get executed. Okay, so I hope it is clear. Let me demonstrate you this. Okay, clear drawings. Okay, so I have a written program in here. I hope I have. So this is for input output error. Okay, yes. Okay, let me demonstrate you the else. Like here you have a try block. Okay, so you have a numerator, you have a denominator, and you are printing the division product. Okay, so then if you have a zero division error, it is saying that denominator cannot be zero, please enter a non-zero value. Good, it is okay. Then in the else, what am I writing is division completed successfully. Okay, so what is happening here? If there is no exception in this try block, what does that mean? It means that there was no exception. Okay, there was no divide by zero error. So that's why I am printing that message called division completed successfully in the else. Okay, so if there is exception, it will print this message. If there is no exception, it will print this message. Okay, so let us try this quickly and see, because we are short of time right now. Oh yeah, let me go to main. Okay, and copy this program. Okay, so I have a try, I have an except, and I also have a else statement. Okay, so just run this. Okay, run. So it is asking for me to enter numerator. I am entering the numerator as 6, and also I am entering the denominator as 3. Okay. So what it is saying, that it is saying the result is 2, and it is also saying that division completed successfully. So what is this saying? It is saying that there was no exception raised. That's why the statement inside the else block is executed. Now let us have an exception and see whether it will get executed or not. Okay, so let me run this again. So I will have the numerator as 6 and denominator as 0. So then what is happening? It is saying that denominator cannot be 0. Please enter a non-zero value. Okay, so this is what we have. So now I hope everyone is clear what is the difference between finally block and else block, right? Okay, so let me see. So can anyone tell me, did you find any difference between else block and finally block, or are they both looking same to you? Okay, you can text, or even like you can unmute and say to me also, like yes, because I'm not getting much input from you, right? So yes, so did you find any difference between the else block and finally block? Anyone? So are you guys there? Okay. Okay, yeah. So looks like you are there. Okay, so we will keep this as for now, so we have less time. Okay, let us go back. Okay, so seems like no one wants to convey what they want to tell, but I hope everyone is clear. What is for everyone is clear about what is else block and what are we having the finally block, right? So this might be a question like why do we use else block in competitive type of exam? Are you appearing for recruitment type of exams for different MNCs, etc.? Okay, so just try to make a note by yourself also if you want. Okay, so now like we are done with else block also. Okay, so then yeah, so then we have also seen what is input output error also, right? So yeah, so then we have, yes, so then after that we have this I want you to know more about some more exceptions, like because we have time constraint, we can only discuss certain type of error. We have discussed divide by zero errors, we have discussed limit indexing error, we have discussed input output error. Okay, so but there are some more errors which I want you to know, and there are some like 15 to 20 exceptions in Python, okay, which you can cache and work on it. Okay, so let us see. We have first type of error is keyboard interrupt error. So what is happening is whenever you enter Control C, okay, so what this Python will understand that the program has been interrupted. Okay, so if you want to catch this exception using exception clause, you have to use this term called as keyboard interruption. Okay, so then you have overflow error. What is overflow error? It is raised when a floating point exception evaluates to a value that is too large. Okay, so like every floating point exception in Python has a limit. Okay, so you can have only decimals up to 10 power 38, right? So like I think the decimal point is like you have 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, right? So you can have only up to 35 to 36 digits in Python, right? So but if you are going beyond that, if the value of value you are working with is going beyond that, you can have this overflow error. So you can catch that and give respective message that the floating point number is very long or the decimal number is very long. Okay, so then we have zero division error, like you have seen when you attempt to divide by zero, and input output error when the input and output operation fails, and index error, like if we have seen the index error, it is used when the index of the list is more than what its length. Okay, if the length of the given index is more than the length of the list, then we will be getting index error. Okay, so then we have name error. When is this name error raised? The name error is raised when you evaluate an unassigned identifier. Like if you haven't given a value, like if you haven't given a is equals to 2, but you are printing the value of a. Okay, so that type of error is called as name error. And what is type error? Type error is raised when an operation of a function is applied to an object of the wrong type. Like you have to multiply floating numbers, but you are multiplying to strings. you cannot multiply two strings. That type of error is called as type error. Then you have value error. Okay, so value error is raised when the operation of a function has an argument of the right type but incorrect value. Like you are having floating numbers in integer values or strings in floating numbers. That type of error is called as value error. Okay, so these are some most important or mostly used exceptions in Python. Okay, so yes, so that is what we have about exceptions. Okay, so I think yes, so we are done. We are mostly have covered the everything about exceptions, and I want you to try this. Okay, so you will be getting these notes on the WhatsApp chat. And one more thing before I end this class is I want you to say is you want to get a Python certificate because you are attending class daily. Please get a Python certificate which will add value to the resume. Okay, so you will be having resume, and under your column of the programming languages which you know, you can mention C, C++, Python, or any other you know. Okay, so only mentioning is not enough. If you have a certificate, it will be added boost to your portfolio. Like the interviewers prefer that you have a certificate. Okay, so if you are interested to get a certificate, please register on WhatsApp. Okay, so that's it for our today's class. Okay, so we will meet tomorrow at the same time. Okay, thank you everybody.